going on inside. Who can set me free from this thing? And I can relate myself to this guy. There was a time in my life when I had a life-controlling problem, and I couldn't put my finger on what the problem was. What's wrong with me? Why am I so different? Why do I have to rely on drugs to get about every day of my life? And I felt like this guy. If I could have put words on what I was thinking or going through, I would have said, listen, I'm not stupid. There's something going on in my life. I need someone in my life. I one night mustered up the courage to sit down and talk with my grandfather. I love my grandfather very much. He's dead now, bless him. But I mustered up the courage one night, and I sat down with my grandfather, and it took me ages to come up with a question. And I managed to get the courage, and I said to my granddad, Grandad, can I ask you a question? It's probably going to be one of the most important questions I would ever ask anyone. And he said, yeah, go on and ask. And I said to him, why am I so different? Why can't I fit in? Why am I the black sheep of the family? Why doesn't anything ever work for me? Why are these things happening? What's wrong with me? My granddad turned around. Even though that I would have looked at my grandfather as a wise man, he didn't give me the answer that I needed. My grandfather said to me, Neil, your problem is you need a job. You need to settle down. You run around the village here, there, and everywhere. You need to settle down. You need to get married. You need a job. You know, I'm not saying that we don't need to work. We too. Get married, have children. But that's not what I needed to hear. My problem was spiritual. My problem was spiritual, and no job in this world could have solved my problem. It was something deeper. And this is what I love about Jesus. He goes to the root. When Jesus came and set me free, he didn't come and give me a job. He came and gave me life. He came and gave me salvation. And you may have heard me say this story before of a guy from America. He was a heroin addict. There was something going on the inside of him. He couldn't understand himself. He didn't know who he was, why he was going through the things he was going through. And one day, he got a hypodermic needle, filled it up with blood from his own arm, laid on the bed, and squirted a word on the ceiling. The word that he squirted on the ceiling was, help. Help. That's the only way that he could express what was going on the inside. Help. And there are many, many people out there who are trying to express what's going on the inside. They don't understand who they are. They don't understand where they're going. They don't understand what the root of their problem is. The root of their problems is spiritual. But I love this story, you know. They brought him to Jesus. I can tell you, keep bringing me to Jesus. If you pray for me, bring me to Jesus. Apparently there's a woman in Bacall, I don't know who I can't remember her name. She's been praying for me since I left Sunday school when I was a child. I can't remember her name now, Mrs. Vine or something like this. She's been praying for me all my life. She brought me to Jesus. I'm indebted to this woman. She prayed for me over and over and over again. She brought me to Jesus. And that is a place that we need to bring each other. He is the one who has the answer to our problems. And if you want to pray for me, please bring me to Jesus. Take me to Jesus. Because I can't get enough of him. I need more of Jesus. I love Karen. I'm getting married in 3 weeks Saturday. And I'm looking forward to that. And I love Karen with all my heart. And I love you, Lord. But I love Jesus. There's no comparison. Jesus is the one that brings us life. He is the very air that we breathe. And it's Jesus that each and every single one of us need. They brought him to Jesus. Another interesting thing about this man is that he was deaf. There are a lot of people that are deaf these days. A lot of people that are not hearing God. Like Phil was talking about earlier about you look at the news. You don't need to look at the news very long to feel discouraged. The world is in a mess. The world is in chaos. And it's because we're not listening to God. We're not hearing God. We're not interested in what God's got to say about the situation. We've rejected God. God has been pushed out of the schools. God has been pushed out of everywhere. We don't want God. We have the answers. And because of that, the world is in a mess. The world is not listening to God. May I give you a bit of advice? Listen to what God is saying in your life. Don't run on your own. One word from God can change your life. One word from God can change a situation. One word from God can change your direction. We need to hear from God. God is speaking. God wants to speak. And we need to receive what he's got to say. This man was deaf. He couldn't speak and he was deaf. What a place to be. What a place to be. But these people, they brought him to Jesus. The amazing thing is this, that when they brought him to Jesus, Jesus took him aside. I love that. Jesus took him aside from the multitude. That is personal. You know, it's almost like Jesus took him to one side and looked at him, and he was like saying to him, look, you know, this is between me and you. Jesus doesn't expose people. He doesn't embarrass people. He's very personal and very loving and very caring. He respects people's boundaries. You know, he's a loving God. And Jesus took him to one side from the multitude, and it was almost like he was looking into his eyes and saying, come on now, let's reason together. Let's talk, me and you. What's going on in your life? What's your problems? What are your questions? What's your situation? Let's reason together, me and you. Have you read this verse in Isaiah? I think it's in the first chapter. God is amazing. And God says, even though that your sin is a multitude of sins, let's reason. Let us reason together, me and you. And I can wash you and make you as white as snow. Let us reason together. What sort of God does that? The God of the universe. The God who could crush us in a second. But he comes to us and says, let us reason together. Let us talk. Let's talk. That is amazing. And Jesus is personal. And in saying that, I would encourage you to be open with God. Whatever you share with God is not going to throw him off. It's not going to confuse him. It's not going to put him on the back foot. He knows and he understands. And he loves us enough to want to do something about it. Be honest with God. Be open with him. This is in fact something that God has been pulling me up on regularly. He pulls me up on it regularly. Neil, I want you to be honest. Don't hide. Don't run away. When you blow it, when you make mistakes, talk to me. This is one of the things that I love about King David. What I love about King David is that every time he blew it, he ran to God. You know, I believe that circumstances and situations in life will ultimately have two outcomes. You will either blame God for it, and it will push you away from God, or it will drive you towards God. And you will run to God with the questions, with the need. And you will ask God to help. And King David done that every time. And he ran to God with his problems. This is what we need to do. God is inviting us. God invites each and every single one of us. Come on now. Let's reason together. Let's talk. What's the issue? What are you struggling with? Let's talk about this. Jesus took him aside. Amazing. It goes on to say that when Jesus side, Jesus